Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Oh, yeah, please.
Before you start rambling on, because the ramble finished at 7 o'clock this morning, okay? So this is direct questioning of you, the premier commentator in this country. Have you noticed anything, or did you notice anything different about Richmond under Adam Uzo last night?
What did I know? I thought, well, when their first 20 minutes they looked like they were souped up, and maybe that's the first, the coach and everyone wanted to make an impression. Their forward pressure was great. So Collingwood couldn't exit in the manner that they like to. How aggressive they are when they move the footy, but they stopped them in their tracks, and they're turning the ball over in the right parts of the ground and going back inside 50. I think it was about 12-3 inside 50s early. As I said, they kicked 1 goal 7. So all that great work of the pressure, turn the ball over, which is what all clubs are trying to do particularly against a side like Collingwood, and they just didn't get any reward on the scoreboard. So. Then they started Bolter forward. He didn't have a great night. And he and Kazitsky didn't have a great night. So the big two key forwards didn't dominate by any stretch.
Is that going to be a problem for them this season, do you think? If Lynch, if we don't see Lynch for a while, obviously, Revolt's gone. Yeah. Is that going to be, on what you've seen last night, small sample size, understand. But are they going to have to tinker with that part of their game?
A little bit, but Dustin and Bolton were both always there and thereabouts. Now, Dusty started really well, and you know how good Shea Bolton is. So you can manufacture something. You can make something happen. But we spoke to Tom Lynch last night. I had a chat with him off air. He's really confident that he's over his foot injury, and if he's not going to be there for the first game, then he reckons he'll be back early. So he and Bolter as two big key forwards, I really like that with the others at his feet. So and then
Gibcus down back.
Yeah, well, they're able to play Bolter forward because Gibcus came back and he was, sensational. I thought he was. You were really the story.
You really liked him.
Well, he was. I thought he and Naismith were the story for the Tigers. Sam Naismith hadn't played footy since 2020. A senior game of footy since 2020.
He is an extraordinary story. But if the captain was available, could you see them playing both Naismith and Nankervis in the same team?
Good question, isn't it? So you got Naismith, Nankervis, Ryan, Samson Ryan, who's a tall kid. Then you got Bolter and Lynch as well. Bolter could pinch hit, in the ruck for 10 minutes if you needed to. So that's one of they're really well served. Miller down the back, and so they got these big, tall, 6'7", 6'6" blokes. But no, I don't know whether they play both of them. To be perfectly honest, he put his hand up.
I've always thought, and you do too, I think that the best forwards are really smart players. Like, there's got to be a high level, I think, of football intelligence about a good key forward. Do you think Bolter is there yet as that type of player? I'm not talking about the athleticism because he's a wonderful looking athlete. He's big, he's strong, he's powerful, he's quick, he's agile, all that sort of stuff. But just to pick up the nuances of the game and the placement of self and that type of thing, do you think he's there yet?
No, he's not a natural forward. He's not a natural forward. So you'd hope that he can learn. But if you're not a natural forward, you've got to be the other thing, and that is a competitive beast. And he's more inclined for that. Like he'll crash a pack. He'll get to contests. He won't get outmarked. So he's going to bring all those elements, and then you hope that he learn some of that nuance just talk about as he goes through it. But no, he's not your natural. Like, I go at the other end and you watch one of my boys, Brody Mychek, and the way he works and, pushes up to the wing and then gets back and, realises when he needs to be an option for those coming out of defence and realises when he can push deep. So he doesn't have those natural instincts, but he is a competitive bugger. There's no doubt about that.
You talked briefly last night during the telecast about Ash Johnson. Eddie spoke about him a little bit as well. Does he need to do more work as a forward?
For sure.
Is he a bit lazy?
No, I don't know if he's lazy, but he didn't look like, he was to the same extent that you're talking about. It's not. It's a game within a game as a key forward. You've got to be able to be that target and present and, do all the things that Mychek was doing. But it's also you're playing against your opponent and you've got to make him think about stuff other than just focusing on what's happening up there. So Gibcus's athleticism allows him. He really played super game, but he never really had to worry about what Ash Johnson was doing. Like Johnson went to every predictable spot, stood there sometimes just, okay, I'm down the line, and then the contest would play out, and that's when you run back to the goal square. That's when you make Gibcus turnaround, and so all that thing, because he and McInnes were on display. That's why we focused on it a lot last night. That Craig McRae said, "Listen, these blokes are getting a shot at it because McStay's not there. Who's it going to be?" So it was a little bit of a rehearsal, if you like. So Johnson had first crack at it. Didn't think I think Johnson's got great ability, but he didn't do much. And then McInnes came on just after half time, and he kicked a couple of goals, had 3 shots at goal pretty early. Looked like he worked a bit harder.
Yep.
But I don't think either of them locked down their spot.
Okay. They recruited Schultz from Fremantle. Is that an upgrade on Ginnivan, say, having Schultz in the side?
I think so.
Significant or just marginal?
Significant. Well, no, I think it's
He kicks the ball beautifully from
he was lost
further
early.
up the field, doesn't he?
He was lost in the wash. He's trying to work out where the ball was going, and after half time, he does all his best work by getting up high, like he'll pressure and chase out. And then get involved on the way back. And, his kicking inside 50 was great.
He's a super intelligent player too. He's a real
worker.
thinker.
He's a worker wisp. Yeah. He works so hard. So from that point of view, Ginnivan might get there, but I don't think Ginnivan worked as hard as what Lockie Schultz did. So
I think Schultz is going to be a real favourite with the fans too because of the way that he plays. And he got it probably at the end of the day. I don't know. Did he kick 2?
What did he kick goals here?
1 or 2?
1. He got 1, but he hit a couple of players lace out. Yeah. And the thing is, this is the other thing, is you got Bobby Hill, who's the reigning Norm Smith medalist. So now you got who do you go to as your most dangerous? This is, the opposition clubs are going to have to work out now. You're doing your planning. Are we going to Hill? We're going to Schultz, and both of them can get high and work their way back. So no, they've added there. I think he's an upgrade on Ginnivan, Schultz.
And Taranto and Hopper, did you think that there was a difference about their stoppage work that wasn't apparent last year?
No, I didn't notice anything, but again, not my spot really. But Taranto just did what Taranto does. Yeah. Just got a heap of footy. He had 6 touches in the first 3 minutes. Just keep finding the footy. And I know, Corn gets all the heat because he was a bit exaggerated where he sits, but he doesn't. You don't watch a game and walk away from it and go, geez, Taranto was creative, or, gee, set stuff up. You walk away from, gee, accumulated a lot of footy and worked his backside off and just put his head in the hole. All those really great things that you admire. But I don't think either he or Hopper, for mine, you get the creative brilliance that Dustin brings or Shea Bolton brings when they go in there. So
no, he doesn't play like that. He plays more like Mitchell, probably, like a Tommy Mitchell type thing. It's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah. No, that's right. That's a good point. There's a couple other young fella. The young boy Dean came on and played defence when Darcy Moore went off. So Charlie Dean, he looks like he's capable if they needed to go there. And Jeremy Howe, of course, they expect him to be back. Pendlebury will be back. But
it's hard to break down Collingwood's defence, isn't it? Once they got settled and the game sort of spun back around on their terms, pretty much, if you can't get the ball through the central part of the ground quickly and effectively, and they get time to set up and zone, and they're so athletic and they really understand each other. They've been playing together for a while now. It is very hard to break it down.
It is, and that's where for Rust or first time out, they were caught out a lot early when they did get through Richmond. And that's your challenge. I think that's a challenge for all teams this year. Can you get through? And not just can you get through Collingwood. I think most teams are going to be aggressive in the way they defend, and it's just a matter of whether or not you can get through. And Richmond did early. They just charged through them, and then Darcy was caught out of position, and so they made that adjustment as the game wore on. But, they tightened up, and then you come to admire what they do. They support each other so beautifully in the back half. So
they're well drilled. They are really well drilled.
But you get to talk to when it's great when you're at the ground for a practice match like that, and you go down the ground and you get to talk to all the different people who are just around. And this is not groundbreaking. It won't be the first time you hear this, but as soon as Dacos and DeGoey just took over the game, the whole thing changed. Like they ended up they just dictate where the ball goes and where they run, and the creativeness that comes out of them, and you could just see the Collingwood sort of brains trust just start nodding their head, going, "Oh, yeah, now that's what it looks like again," when they started to run the show. So,
did you see anything in Richmond performance that would suggest that they're going to be better than they were last season? Or will they be one of those teams that will be contesting and fighting for a spot in the
I think the latter,
the bottom part of the eight?
I think the latter. Hutto hit the nail on the head. I reckon everything would have to be perfect for the Tigers, and I agreed with him. And that would be that Lynch has got to come back and get through unscathed. That Bolton and Martin are going to play more footy than they don't. Gibcus can't get hurt. So all those things have to fall into place, and we know that doesn't always happen. So no, I've got them outside, but that's just a calculated guess at the moment.
Hello, boys. How are you?
Good to see you.
Tell you what, I'm very excited this morning when I woke up and the Wisp says you need to have a high level of intelligence to be a key forward.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, it's
that's the best statement you made.
Finally.
More of that on Talking Footy, please.
Always have I thought that. But before we get to all that though, I want to know how you managed to get out of the car park so swiftly last night from Icon Park.
Well, it was like Garry. I heard obviously the pre-game. They wouldn't let Garry into the car park pass. Garry just tried to throw his weight around, but then on the way out, knowing Gaz had been frustrated on the way in, I thought I'm just going to lead him into the race nicely. And I lasted about a minute, and the patience got the best of me. Then I just veered left, shot through the car park.
You
it was a
know
bit
what?
like Days of Thunder.
You know what?
Robin's racing, Harry.
It was like a trotting race, right? And the barrier and the arms had gone back, and then the car's just there, and there was a gap. Yep. And I needed to take the gap, but I couldn't because I was too close to the car in front of me. Yeah. And the big fella just said, "Leave that to me," and away he went.
I found the sprint lane,
and I just got into his slipstream and let him. And I thought, if we get a bad rap for cutting anyone off here, I'm just going to say, "Well, I was just following Brownie." So there you go. It was a good night last night for the two teams that had a bit of a hit out.
Good that footy's back, guys. Yeah, it was a beautiful night for it. Obviously, the goal kicking wasn't. Well, it probably hasn't changed much to what we've seen for the last 20 years, but it was good to see the boys out there. A pretty good dress rehearsal. Collingwood was sharp, weren't they? So the takeaway is that Collingwood's still going to be up there again. And Richmond, well, where's Richmond at? You know, it's always, I've been part of this. It's hard to rebound off the back of a dynasty. And it is the end of a dynasty because their coach has gone to coach somewhere else. And obviously you've got ageing superstars. You've had a couple that have retired in Rewald and Cochin. So just what's the next level coming through with?
So what did you learn from that experience then?
Look, I agree with Gaz. They've got some impressive big guys, some young guys. Impressed with Gibcus especially. I like the Bolter experiment down the other end. The challenge for me always is your engine room. You know, now, can you replace superstars? With young midfielders coming through. So I think that's the watch on Richmond for me has always been, well, certainly the last 2 or 3 years, okay, who's the next young sort of A-grade class midfielder coming
But they've
through?
looked at that. So they've got Taranto in there, they've got Hopper, they've recruited those guys in the last 18 months. Are they going to be the fillers that they need or not?
Well, what are they, about 25, 26?
Yeah, they're in the right age bracket.
Yeah, they are. The core of your club always needs to be drafted, though, and I think history has proven that. So can a Thompson Dow come through to be that elite level midfielder and whoever else can? Young Jack Ross, he didn't get much of an opportunity, but he might be 23 as well. So, that's the level. So they do need Taranto and Hopper to be there. I think Taranto, you're right, he's more of an accumulator. He's not your X-factor type midfielder. So you just want to see some class there. So I think that's going to be the watch on the Tigers.
Tell us about... So you've gone through what you guys went through. You've won your 3, and then all of a sudden you're not the best team in the comp. You're not the big dogs. How do you deal with that? The psyche. You're the captain then, so you're going to take over the group. I mean, so that's some of the challenges that are facing this Richmond group at the minute.
Well, the challenge for us was obviously the lobster wasn't good enough, and we took the Murphy family out. But we needed a good young star midfielder, and Mark Murphy's the father-son eligible. And we took Johnny Murphy. And,
how'd you miss that?
Well, we took him to the best restaurant, the best seafood restaurant in Brisbane.
He
Lisa was there, and Gubby was there, and whoever else was there. And, mate, the lobsters were unbelievable. It might have had something to do with I took him out to the casino afterwards. He was underage, and we lost all his money. So no wonder he signed to Carlton. But there you go, guys. We couldn't replace the Vosses and the Lappins. And
how were you going to, though? Like, they were generational players, weren't they?
Would have helped if Mark Murphy came on for a little freebie.
It would have, but then when you set the bar that high and you've got that, they're probably acknowledged as maybe the greatest band of midfielders that have ever played the game.
Yeah, absolutely, no question about it. So that is the challenge, and can you find that next level to come through and connect? And I do like the philosophy of the Adam Moose. I think it's the right thing. It's the right thing for Damien Hardwick and Richmond to be able to try and reset the group and try and freshen the group up and move in another direction. And Adam Moose respectfully has come in and said, right, we're not going to try and get back to what it was. We need to create our own destiny and our own history, and I really like that. And I think that's also good for the veterans that are currently there. Yeah. In a Dustin Martin, Dylan Grimes, these sorts of guys. And we didn't have that. Lee was probably around for another 4 or 5 years, and there's always that thing in the locker room that there's that feeling of, we can get back. We can get back. You're never getting back.
Who came after Lee as coach?
Vossi. Down.
Now, can I just ask this question about that? Because I thought it was Vossi. I just want to make sure and clarify it was Vossi. But Vossi has been through sort of Lee as the coach. So maybe you didn't get a great change. You've almost got the same type of coach with the same philosophy.
You have to be influenced by Lee in what you're going to do.
Exactly. So would it have been better for you at that time? I'm just talking about you, okay? And I know you're great mates with Vossi and that type of thing, so I'm not asking you to criticise him. But would it have been better for you as a player, maybe had they gone and got somebody from outside the Brisbane line?
I think whole of club, no doubt. And in fairness to Vossi, he won a final in his first year as coach. But there was some poor list decisions that were made, in the ensuing years, obviously, which affected Vossi and the success of the team. But you're right, you're spot on, and that's what I like about the move with Uze coming in, because it does change and it does freshen up and does, as a veteran, make you look through a different lens with your football. And that's really important, and help you round out your game and help maybe make you harder to play against. Yes, absolutely, I agree with that, because I had Vossi and then I had Lepper. Now I know Lepper went away, but it's still they're going to be heavily influenced by Lee Matthews,
exactly,
who obviously I was heavily influenced by. So you're spot on.
Brownie's in the studio because we love him, but and was there last night. But we started talking last week about footy in Queensland, and then we had a couple of messages, and then the temper text went nuts about people who are listening up in Queensland. And
I did hear about this.
Backing up how
text me. Surprisingly, there's more listeners than you think up north.
No, that is true.
Well, I'd come back from the Gold Coast, so I went up there for a day, and I couldn't believe what I saw. Like
that's right.
The general excitement and all the people and the kids that were around.
That's when he was interviewing Dimmer and his loafers.
He's big in the Gold Coast.
Did you have socks on?
Anyway,
did you have socks on when you interviewed him?
No, I didn't.
He's big from when they had the Commonwealth Games, and he went up and lived on his own for 14 days.
That was the rider.
And ate at the same Chinese restaurant.
Dimmer said I couldn't come up and interview him unless I didn't have socks on and look like I was one of the locals. But there's a lot of excitement. And then talking to the locals about what was going on up there, and they're trying to focus on winning, not marketing the game up there and expand the game. But the extension of that is that the game is really healthy in Queensland.
So just before you answer, so people most would know, but you moved back. So you've been down here for a long time, and you had Jack, and you had the kids, and now for the reasons that are perfect for your family, you've gone back and you're living up on the coast, and now they're getting immersed into life up there. And I think you've been taken by surprise that AFL footy is a massive part of that.
Absolutely, and I've been taken by the fact that I'm a bloody ordinary fisherman. So I'm
so Jack says, "Get out."
Jack Brown. All of a sudden, he's an angler. He's a boxer. He's an angler. He's a wakeboarder.
This is your boy.
Yeah, this is my boy. Yeah.
And anyway, lives a footballer.
Lives the footballer. So don't if you're a Brisbane Lions supporter, don't hold your breath for Jack Brown to come.
He might be a late developer.
He could too. He's boxing though. He might be a world champion.
Yeah, he nearly knocked a kid out of school yesterday. So just pull up, son. But,
you should see him in a go-kart, though. It's amazing the way that he can get through the traffic.
But Olivia Brown's the one.
So give us your experiences up there. What's it looking like?
Well, it is, and obviously there's been a lot of investment there, but they've infiltrated the schools. And I heard Ben Ikin's comments, and I subscribe to that. Ben Ikin's the boss of the rugby league up in Queensland, and he was critical of rugby league in general for not investing in the game. And obviously Andrew Dillon has made it clear that the AFL is going to invest heavily in grassroots football, and obviously New South Wales and South East Queensland have been at the core of that, no doubt about it. But they've invested heavily in the schools, especially in the Gold Coast region. And my daughter Olivia, she's in the Gold Coast Suns Academy, which is now overseen by Reece Shaw. So that's really impressive. But the fact that they're now getting into the schools. So she does AFL as a subject, can you believe it? And she's from the school where 3 first-round draft picks. Now, you'd struggle to find a school in Australia that's had 3 first-round draft picks.
So that's the Jed Walter and Ethan Reid?
Absolutely, Palm Beach Currumbin.
Hang on, she does AFL as a subject.
As a subject. Now, they have full-time coaches there. She does 4 days a week. It's unbelievable. So it starts on a Monday morning at 8 o'clock and another 3 days at school where they do they have their 4 double periods of AFL as a subject. And it's not
what about that?
It's not theory where you're learning to be a player manager or learning to be, a dietitian within the industry or whatever it may be. This is actually to be a footballer. This is to be an elite footballer.
Is that just at that school, which sounds to me like the Assumption College of the Gold Coast? It's a footy factory,
No,
or is that across
schools.
the board?
There is other schools. So there's other schools on the Gold Coast. There's schools in Brisbane. Luke Hodges, young fella who's an All-Australian. He's about 15, young coop. He's a star, and obviously they will have a choice to make with father-son or, he'll be eligible under the Brisbane Lions Academy to play for Brisbane. So there is schools starting to
just drove off the road out at Waverley on their way to training.
You've killed that off for
yes. To answer your question, and obviously the move west, now Brisbane is really growing west, so there's a lot of new schools out at Springfield where the Brisbane Lions are based, and obviously with all the new schools popping up, what do you think the code's going to be? The AFL is going to throw a huge amount of money at those formative schools or those schools in their formative years to say, hey, we want AFL to be the main sport here. So I guess that's how it's going to happen because essentially you're trying to grow the talent base, aren't you? And then because that's under the zones of the Brisbane Lions or the Gold Coast, they get first dibs at them. And the Suns and the Lions know about that in years ahead because I think Liv School this year alone, last year they might have had 3 or 4 kids in the under-16 team. They're in the All-Australian team or in All-Australian contention. So the Suns would know that.
Yep.
So they'd be getting their draft in order over the next couple of years to make sure they've got the points required to take all those kids like they did this year in the draft.
Jeez, I hope Ben Ikin's not listening to this. He'll have a heart attack. Stay here, Brownie. It's a fascinating chat, and I think you're painting a very rosy picture from an AFL point of view up there in Queensland, which is great to hear, and the challenges for the NRL. Pushhead Pete will get a hold of this and he'll respond. Our Timber text machine's going nuts, backing up exactly what he's saying. We just moved up to Brisbane. My girls weren't interested in footy in Wodonga. Within 2 weeks up here, they're both signed up for Auskick and their involvement in the school is unbelievable. And then Chris from Castlemaine says, boys, is Brownie talking about public schools or private? If he's talking public, jeepers, we're missing the boat.
No, that's right. It's public. That's why we're taking the kids to Europe at the end of the year.
Straight on the
My
fees.
school bill's just gone down dramatically. It's magnificent. Obviously, we were here in Melbourne a couple of years ago. But I should also mention, too, my old school, Emmanuel College, where Noel Muggerman, my uncle and former Richmond and Fitzroy player, Noel was there to teach for a long time, and Dad was as well. They've had a footy academy for the best part of 20 years. They had 2 boys drafted this year. So It's not only happening in Queensland. I've got to acknowledge that.
So do you reckon there might be some people out there listening who've got son, daughters with a little bit of talent? They might be thinking, you know what, we need a bit of a change. Maybe we move up to Queensland, and the best opportunity for our kid to get the best coaching, the best nurturing, great opportunities will be in that part of the world.
Well, it might be. It's certainly a bit cheaper up there, Wisp, but there's a heavy focus on it. Now, clearly, it's an AFL philosophy, and it's working. And I think there's no doubt the COVID season up there really helped push the code. There's no question about that. And
because it became the epicentre of AFL.
Became the epicentre of AFL, and of course, Richmond won the premiership at the Gabba that time. But yes, you do have to have the junior development, but now is the time, and the AFL has seen that they need to make sure the Suns, the senior team, obviously the Brisbane Lions are going well, but the senior team for the Suns needs to start to be competitive, and that's why the Damien Hardwick appointment is so vital.
And is he lifted the profile? Like if, say, the Papers situation or...
Well, it's always been relatively strong on the Gold Coast because there's a lot of Southerners there.
Yeah.
But they're just yearning for a team to be competitive. And so all this crap about, professional teams have never worked on the Gold Coast. Well, the Gold Coast Suns will fix that theory. I've got no doubt about it. As they start to get more and more homegrown talent through there, clearly Damien Hardwick's an elite coach who knows how to get it done. They will be essentially the first sporting team on the Gold Coast to be able to start to be competitive and start to be a regular finals contender, I would have thought.